Hey there, thanks for joining us for another video on our channel. We're here to share some fascinating accounts from folks who have had near-death and spiritual encounters. Today, I'm excited to share the experience of Aleric Whitford. He claims to have had a profound encounter with Jesus, and through it, he's learned that Jesus isn't quite how the church portrays him. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button now. Also, drop a comment with your name and where you're from. Now let's dive into Aleric's story. So, who is Aleric Whitford? Well, he's got a life-changing tale to share. Before everything shifted for him, he led quite a normal life, one that you might easily overlook in a crowd. Raised in Haverhill, Massachusetts, Aleric thrived in the peaceful atmosphere of his hometown. He always appreciated the rhythm of a calm and predictable existence. For many years, he served as a supervisor in a juvenile court's probation department. It was demanding work, but he found meaning in the chance to positively influence young lives. Aleric and his wife, Elowen, enjoyed a modest, simple lifestyle. They had their cozy home, a circle of friends, and a church community. Faith was significant for him. He grew up in a traditional Christian household, and those teachings remained close to his heart throughout his adult years. Their daily schedule was pretty straightforward. Wake up early, share breakfast, head to work, return home, enjoy dinner, watch a bit of TV, and off to bed. Sundays were reserved for church. It was a comfortable life, devoid of any real surprises. Honestly, he relished that predictability. Aleric had never been one to overly question the world around him. He accepted the teachings from church, abided by societal norms, and put his best foot forward at work. Deep philosophical thoughts and existential inquiries weren't his thing. Life was straightforward, and he was content with that, until May 2006 rolled around. It started as an ordinary day. The sun was out, birds were chirping, and he was gearing up for another day at work. Little did he know, everything was about to change dramatically within just a few hours. Let me take you back to a moment that turned my whole understanding of life upside down. It was a day in May, a day that forced me to reflect on everything I thought I knew about existence, mortality, and what might lie beyond it. This experience wasn't just a quick shakeup. It fundamentally reshaped how I viewed the world, my beliefs, and why I am here. What I want to share is a story that spans the themes of death and rebirth, filled with insights and personal transformation. You might want to sit tight for this one. It could challenge how you see things too. Just keep an open mind, because, honestly, what lies outside our understanding can be more incredible than we can ever fathom. It all began with a sudden jolt of agony. A fierce, stabbing pain exploded on the left side of my body, catching me off guard. At first, I shrugged it off, assuming it was just a fleeting discomfort. I had dealt with kidney stones once before, so I thought it might just be that again. But as time trickled by, the pain intensified, and I realized it was far more severe than I initially thought. My partner, Elowen, instantly sensed something was off. There was no hiding my distress from her. She reads me like a book. "Aleric, we need to get you to the hospital," she insisted. I hesitated, as I usually do when faced with a trip to the ER, but I couldn't ignore the pain any longer. With no other options, I reluctantly agreed. The drive felt agonizingly long. Every little bump in the road jolted my body, sending fresh waves of discomfort radiating through me. I gripped the seat, my fingers turning white from the strain, desperately trying to focus on my breathing like I'd practiced. Elowen, with a look of concern etched on her face, kept stealing worried glances at me while she navigated the winding streets at a speed that felt both reckless and necessary. Upon reaching the emergency room, I was whisked away by medical staff who quickly assessed my situation. They asked numerous questions and poked and prodded, and soon my expectations were confirmed. Another kidney stone was at play. Although I was somewhat accustomed to this routine, an unsettling flutter danced in my stomach when they told me I would need surgery to remove it. In the prep room, as nurses busily prepared for the procedure, I caught Elowen's gaze. She was gripping my hand, and in her eyes I saw a blend of worry, love, and unwavering support. "It's going to be okay," she said softly, forcing a reassuring smile despite the gravity of the situation. I took a deep breath, trying to exude a sense of calm that I didn't quite possess. As the anesthesia kicked in, a nagging feeling of foreboding crept over me. like an uncanny instinct, whispering that something monumental was on the horizon. I did my best to dismiss it, chalking it up to the usual jitters before surgery. Yet that feeling lingered, a peculiar prickling sensation at the base of my spine, completely unrelated to the meds. The last images etched in my memory before slipping into unconsciousness were the blinding lights of the surgical suite, the soft murmur of the medical staff, and Elowen's face fading out of view as the doors closed behind her. Then came the pitch-black darkness. Little did I know, this was the beginning of an extraordinary, transformative journey, one that would stretch the boundaries of anything I ever thought possible and challenge my understanding of life, death, and whatever lies beyond. Now, recalling the event still feels surreal, even after all these years. It's hard to find the right words, but I feel compelled to share this tale. It's a narrative that could reshape our perspective on the world and our role within it. From what I gathered later, the surgery was a success. The stone was removed, and under normal circumstances, I would have woken up a few hours later feeling a bit sore but mostly relieved. Yet the universe had something different in store for me. While I was still out cold, my body began waging a silent, deadly war. The antibiotic intended to ward off infections failed spectacularly, and an infection erupted, transforming what should have been a straightforward procedure into a desperate fight for survival. Of course, none of this was on my radar at the time. I was deep in a drug-induced slumber, but Elowen was right there, witnessing everything unfold. She later recounted how my complexion turned a ghostly pale and my breath became erratic and shallow. Her worry mounted as the medical staff came and went with increasing urgency, their faces tight with concern. It was Elowen who sensed that something was gravely wrong. She described it as if a shadow had cast itself over the room. Without hesitation, she alerted a nurse, who quickly grasped the gravity of the situation. In a matter of moments, the room transformed into a hub of frantic activity, with doctors and equipment flooding in. In the hectic atmosphere of the hospital, chaos reigned as everyone rushed around me, trying desperately to bring stability back to my failing body. Unfortunately, the infection had taken hold too deeply. I found myself plunged into septic shock, a dire situation where my blood pressure plummeted and my organs began to shut down one after the other. Elowen later recounted the harrowing moment when the heart monitor's steady beeping shifted to an alarming, continuous high-pitched tone. At that instant, my heart had ceased to beat. I was declared clinically dead. The medical team sprang into action, employing resuscitation techniques with a frantic urgency. They performed chest compressions, delivered electric shocks, and administered adrenaline, zealously utilizing every tool at their fingertips to attempt to revive me. Through all of this, Elowen stood by in stunned disbelief, grappling with how things could deteriorate so dramatically from what was meant to be a typical routine. As chaos unfolded in the room, I felt detached from it all. It's strange, but I was completely unaware of my body or the unfolding events. Instead, I was embarking on an extraordinary journey. A journey that would reshape everything I thought I understood about existence. When the clock struck 3:15 p.m., I was officially considered clinically dead. This moment, which could have simply marked the actually turned out to be the start of something remarkable. It would alter my perception of reality and my place within it in ways I'm still trying to comprehend. What came next is a challenge to articulate even now. Words seem too feeble to encapsulate the vastness and richness of what I experienced. But here's my attempt to share those moments after my clinical death. Prepare yourself, because what I'm about to share might just overturn everything you believe about what happens after we die. The moment the doctor pronounced me clinically dead, I was thrust into an experience that defies any earthly explanation. Without any warning, I found myself hovering above my own lifeless body. It felt surreal, almost like observing a scene from a film, even though I unmistakably recognized the body on the hospital bed as mine. I watched the healthcare team hustling about, their voices a distant murmur as if they were in another realm. My gaze fell upon Elowen, my dearly beloved wife, her face twisted in grief as she clutched my lifeless hand. I yearned to reach out, to soothe her, and assure her that everything would be all right. But to my dismay, I discovered that I was powerless to speak or physically connect with her. As I floated above the bustling scene beneath me, I was struck by a curious sense of serenity amidst the chaos. Oddly enough, I felt no trepidation at all. Instead, a profound peace washed over me, one I had never encountered before. It was as if all the burdens and stresses I had carried for so long had evaporated into thin air. Suddenly, I realized I was moving, but it wasn't in a way I could readily describe. It felt more like I was being transported in an instant. I slipped through the ceiling of the building, an effortless transition, and as I zoomed upward, the floors blurred by in a rush. Before I knew it, I was hovering above the city. The speed picked up, and I watched as the familiar sights of Haverhill faded away. Those beloved green hills and forests shrank into a patchwork below. The bright blue of the sky transformed into the vast, velvety blackness of space, filled with stars that sparkled with an intensity I had never seen from my home. Then I noticed a radiant light ahead. It was unlike anything I had ever come across, bright yet gentle, inviting and warm, as if it were beckoning me. An undeniable pull drew me near, almost as if I had found my true destination. As I approached the light, I began to hear ethereal sounds, not quite music, but more like divine harmonies. It felt as though the entire universe was extending a warm welcome, singing just for me. In the blink of an eye, I passed through that shimmering light, like stepping through an invisible curtain of energy. On the other side, I was greeted by a breathtaking realm beyond description. The colors were beyond anything I could have imagined, with hues I didn't even know existed. The landscape was a feast for the eyes. Vast green fields stretched endlessly, punctuated by mighty trees whose leaves glimmered as if lit from within. Crystal-clear rivers meandered effortlessly through this paradise, their waters sparkling like liquid diamonds. The air, or whatever term could capture it, was infused with a delightful, soothing aroma. It was a blend of fresh blossoms and something indescribable, filling me with a sense of belonging. But the most astonishing aspect of that beautiful place was the overwhelming presence of pure, unconditional love that enveloped everything. It felt like home in its truest sense. It was as though the world around me was alive, embracing me like an old friend. I felt an undeniable certainty wash over me. I had found a slice of paradise. Not the ethereal version depicted in stories or the idyllic scenes crafted by artists, but a living, breathing heaven that surpassed anything I had ever envisioned. This was just the start of my adventure. Taking in my surroundings, I couldn't help but marvel at the extraordinary vitality of everything. Trees stood tall, not merely as plants, but as sentient beings radiating warmth. Flowers seemed to lean in my direction, greeting me with every step. Even the ground, a curious notion since I wasn't sure I had feet anymore, throbbed with liveliness and energy. As I drifted through this paradise, each movement revealed even more marvels. I stumbled upon waterfalls that flowed upwards, their luminous waters producing symphonies as they kissed the rocks. Fields of flowers danced with colors, shifting hues as I glided past, creating a vibrant tapestry I couldn't have imagined. Above me, constellations wove and twirled, crafting intricate patterns that told stories beyond comprehension. Occasionally, I spotted what I could only call comets of love, streaking across the sky, leaving sparkling trails that filled me with a profound joy. As I continued my exploration, I discovered I could travel just by wishing it. Want to stand atop a distant peak? In an instant, there I was. Craving a dive into a radiant ocean? A mere thought whisked me there, surrounded by fantastical creatures that I had never even dreamed about from my world. What filled me with the greatest wonder, though, was the deep connection I sensed with everything around me. I experienced no boundaries between myself and this enchanting environment. It felt as though every part of my essence resonated in perfect sync with every aspect of this heavenly realm. At one moment, I paused at the edge of a pristine lake. The water was astonishingly clear, not just reflecting the azure above, but seemingly housing entire galaxies in its depths. When I caught sight of my reflection, I was taken aback. Gone was the image of Aleric, the 53-year-old man with graying hair and furrowed brows. Instead, I saw a being transformed, a mere glimpse of the joy and love surrounding me. As I stood there, a vibrant and youthful version of myself came into view. This reflection radiated a serenity, and wisdom that felt familiar. It dawned on me that this was my true self, unbound by the constraints of my physical form and the limitations of time. While I was admiring this extraordinary image, an overwhelming sense of love and welcome began to wash over me, signaling the arrival of a presence. It wasn't like a typical physical approach. Instead, it felt as if love was intensifying all around me. With a shift in my awareness, I turned, and for the first time on this divine journey, I encountered him, Jesus. His appearance was quite different from the traditional depictions I had seen in paintings and statues back on Earth. He embodied pure light and was love incarnate. The energy radiating from him was both intensely powerful and softly gentle, making me feel immediately at home. His eyes, deep and infinite, resembled a soothing embrace from a caring father. "Welcome, Aleric." His voice resonated not just within my ears, but deep within my soul. "There's much for you to discover." At that moment I understood. My exploration of heaven was only beginning, and the most profound insights were still ahead of me. As I ventured further into this celestial paradise, each detail captured my wonder. Just then I sensed another presence drawing near. The feelings swirling within me were unlike anything I had ever known, an extraordinary mix of awe and unconditional love, mixed with a sense of deep familiarity. I instinctively knew who awaited me. The trees ahead seemed to part, creating a natural path leading onward. Suddenly, there he was, Jesus Christ. But he was nothing like the figures portrayed in Renaissance art or church-stained glass. This was a being of dazzling brilliance, glowing with a gentle warmth that enveloped everything nearby. And those eyes of his, they were endless wells of compassion and understanding. When he looked at me, it felt as if my entire existence was laid bare before him, seen without judgment but with total acceptance and love. Overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of emotions flooding over me, I knelt down, not out of dread or forced respect, but because the experience was simply too powerful to bear. Tears sprang forth, if you could call them tears in that transcendent state, as everything that had burdened my soul, my fears, doubts, and sins, washed away. What remained was an exhilarating lightness and purity I had never known before. Jesus stepped closer, his gentle smile beaming with warmth, and extended his hand to lift me up. A warmth enveloped me, almost like a wave of pure affection rushing through my entire being. "Welcome, Aleric," a voice resounded, not just in my ears, but resonating deep within me. "You've traveled a great distance to arrive here." For a moment, I found myself unable to articulate a single word. What do you say to someone so profound? But then I realized that words were unnecessary. In this extraordinary space, our thoughts and feelings intertwined effortlessly. With a gentle motion, Jesus started to walk, inviting me to accompany him. Side by side, we strolled along a path, and as he spoke, his words flowed like music, imbued with wisdom. "Aleric," he began, "I can sense you have countless questions about life, faith, and the greater meaning behind it all. I also understand that much of what you see here might upend what you once believed." Nodding, I tried to process the whirlwind of emotions that surged within me, but words escaped me. "The truth, Aleric," he continued, "is beautifully simple yet remarkably profound. At its core is love, a boundless, unconditional love that serves as the foundational thread of everything around us." With each sentence, it felt as if layers were peeled away from my understanding. Insights about reality, the purpose of existence, and the interwoven nature of all beings flowed into me. He elaborated further. "Many teachings you've encountered on Earth are mere reflections, often muddled by human limitations or ulterior motives. But the core of my message revolves around love, compassion, and unity, not judgment or fear." Those words struck me hard. How often had I unfairly judged others? How often had my actions been steered by fear instead of compassion? Sensing my inner turmoil, Jesus placed his hand reassuringly on my shoulder. "Don't carry that burden, Aleric. Every soul's journey is distinct, and everyone grows at their own pace. What truly matters is your presence here now, witnessing and experiencing the truth for yourself." An overwhelming wave of gratitude washed over me, so profound I feared I might burst. I felt immense thankfulness for this moment, this realization, and the unconditional love that I now recognized as the universe's essence. With a gentle smile that radiated all the wisdom and love of the universe, Jesus looked at me, There's so much more waiting for you, Aleric. Are you ready to move forward on this journey? I didn't think twice. I just agreed. What I hadn't realized was that some profound insights were still waiting to unfold. Strolling alongside him, I discovered that Jesus had a lot to share, and it shook the foundations of everything I thought I understood about faith, existence, and reality. His tone was gentle, yet each statement resonated with a deep truth. Aleric, he said, the views held by you and many others about me, heaven, and the essence of the spiritual realm are often oversimplified. The actual reality is so much more expansive and magnificent than what can be grasped by the human mind. He stopped for a moment, giving me space to absorb what he was saying. Then he continued, many envision me as a severe judge, quick to condemn, but that's a misunderstanding. The true nature of divinity is pure, unconditional love. It's not the type of love that's often conditional on earth. It's a love that fully accepts and nurtures every soul, no matter their actions or beliefs. That hit me hard. I realized how often I'd been anxious about facing divine judgment. How frequently had I judged others, thinking I was executing God's will. Noticing the turmoil in my thoughts, Jesus offered a warm smile. The judgment you dread on earth is in fact an illusion. When souls transition from the physical realm, they embark on a journey of self-reflection. It's in that moment that they perceive their lives through the lens of universal love, grasping the impacts of their choices and actions. His voice brimmed with compassion as he elaborated. Many earthly religions, despite noble intentions, frequently misrepresent this core truth. They impose rules, traditions, and hierarchies that, instead of uniting people with the divine, often create barriers to genuine spirituality. I felt a wave of both shock and liberation wash over me. My whole life had been rooted in rigid teachings, which I believed were essential for salvation. Yet here was Jesus, revealing that the reality was so much broader and inclusive. True spirituality, he said succinctly, goes beyond just adhering to strict rules or being part of a specific religion. It resides in living a life filled with love, empathy, and compassion. It involves recognizing the divine within yourself and in all beings, understanding that we are interconnected pieces of a greater consciousness. As he spoke, it felt as if layers were being lifted from my perception. Suddenly, I was glimpsing reality in an entirely new light. As I took a moment to absorb everything, it struck me how interconnected everything is. Each person, every living being, and even the tiniest particle seemed to be tied together by luminous threads of love. It was fascinating to see how our thoughts and actions send ripples through this cosmic tapestry, influencing everything we encounter. The essence of life, Aleric began, isn't about seeking a spot in paradise or dodging consequences. It's fundamentally about growth, learning, and broadening our consciousness. Each life lived and every event experienced serve as stepping stones for our souls to evolve, drawing us closer to the realization that all existence is fundamentally united. These insights felt both exhilarating and a bit overwhelming, as if my entire belief system was being torn down and rebuilt in real time. Yet curiously, I felt no fear. Instead, there was this profound sense that I was finally nearing a greater truth. Noticing my contemplation, Aleric placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. The warmth radiating from his touch filled me with love and understanding. I know this is quite a lot to absorb, Eloin, but reflect on this. None of your experiences are by mere coincidence. Every challenge, each joyful instance, these moments have been preparing you for this revelation you're experiencing now. Looking deeply into Aleric's eyes, which seemed to encapsulate the wisdom of the universe, I couldn't help but voice the burning question in my mind. What should I do with all this knowledge once I go back? His smile was tender, yet his gaze held a fiery intensity that resonated within me. Spread the love, Eloin. Live out the truth you've uncovered here. Avoid preaching rules or doctrines. Instead, let your actions and your very essence reflect the reality of unconditional love and the oneness of all creation. In that instant, clarity washed over me, providing a sense of purpose I had never known before. I realized that if I returned, my life would be transformed forever. This journey of discovery and enlightenment was only the beginning. After sharing these profound truths, Aleric invited me to delve further into this heavenly realm. There's so much more awaiting your exploration, he said, his smile warm and inviting. Each soul sees this existence in their own distinct way, colored by personal experiences and perceptions. Embrace what you see without judgment or preconceived notions. With that, Aleric gently faded away, not in a startling manner, but rather as if he had seamlessly blended into the very surroundings. It dawned on me that I had so much to explore. Even in the absence of his physical form, I discovered that his essence was palpable in the world around me. With that realization, I set off on a journey through an astonishing celestial realm. The first thing that struck me was how the surroundings reacted to my emotions and thoughts. When I focused on feelings of tranquility, I found myself surrounded by a stunning garden filled with vibrantly colored flowers that I'd never encountered on Earth. The scent was a delightful mix, soothing yet invigorating, a blend I struggled to describe. As my thoughts shifted to grandeur and majesty, my environment transformed. I suddenly stood atop an awe-inspiring mountain, gazing down at an endless valley. The mountains below appeared to ebb and flow like gentle waves, while the sky painted itself in a stunning array of colors, with auroras swirling in captivating patterns. At one moment, I felt a profound connection to the nature surrounding me. The trees, the rocks, even the breeze felt alive with consciousness. I realized that rather than using words, I could connect with them through an exchange of emotions. It was as if the entire landscape was intertwined with my very being, and I was an integral part of it. As I roamed this enchanting place, I met other souls along the way. Some were instantly recognizable. These were loved ones who had passed on. My grandparents appeared before me, youthful and radiant, their faces glowing with friendly smiles. Friends I had lost over time were there too, all looking like their best selves. The joy of reuniting with them was indescribable. There was no need for small talk or lengthy explanations. Our shared experiences flowed freely between us in an instant. It was a seamless communion that transcended earthly speech. Among the souls I encountered was my uncle, Aleric Whitford, a figure who had always inspired me back home. He offered a warm smile and conveyed a silent message. Look after your family, Aleric. The love we share here must be reflected in our actions on Earth. Alongside the familiar faces, I also met beings that seemed beyond any human description. They radiated pure light, exuding wisdom and compassion. While I couldn't fully grasp their nature, I felt a deep sense of understanding from their presence. In the midst of my transcendent journey, I found myself in this breathtaking heavenly realm, where I was surrounded by what felt like guardians or celestial guides. It was surreal. One of these beings approached me and, without uttering a single word, shared visions of the universe that were mind-blowing. I witnessed galaxies in their infancy, others meeting their end, and I marveled at the cosmic ballet of stars and planets. Everything felt so interconnected, from the tiniest atom to the most colossal supernova. This experience was both humbling and a powerful reminder of the vastness of creation. As I wandered through this extraordinary space, I noticed that the concept of time had vanished. There weren't any cycles of day and night. It was simply an everlasting present filled with awe and discovery. The joy and tranquility that enveloped me were unlike anything I had encountered before. But then amid this beauty, a subtle feeling of unease stirred within me. Deep down, a part of me recognized that this heavenly experience wouldn't last forever. There was still something awaiting me back on Earth. Suddenly, I sensed the familiar presence of Jesus approaching, and I could tell that another significant moment was drawing near. Taking a breath, I watched as he appeared beside me. His expression was calm, yet there was an intensity in his gaze that told me this was crucial. "Aleric," he began gently, "you have merely scratched the surface of eternity. Your time on Earth is not yet finished." My heart, or whatever it was that I felt in that moment, dropped at his words. The thought of leaving this paradise, filled with pure love and peace, filled me with a sadness unlike anything I had known before. Jesus, perceptive of my turmoil, placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch sent a wave of reassurance through me, washing over my entire being. "I can see your hesitance, Aleric," he said, his voice radiating warmth. "This place is indeed magnificent, and one day you will return to dwell here. For now, however, you carry an important mission on Earth." With a puzzled expression, I looked back at him, a hint of apprehension in my voice. "A mission?" I asked, my words slightly quivering. He nodded, a smile bright enough to rival the sun stretching across the horizon. Exactly, Aleric. You've witnessed some extraordinary truths here, insights that many on Earth remain blind to. You've experienced the pure love that underpins all of existence. Now your task is to share that understanding. How can I possibly share something so vast and incredible with people who haven't felt it? I had asked, a mix of honor and apprehension swirling within me. There was a growing sense of purpose inside, like my entire being was aligning with something new, something important. With a gentle smile that radiated understanding, he replied, "Through love, Elowen, through compassion. It's in your actions and the essence of who you are. You don't need to preach or convert anyone. Just live out the truths you've discovered. Show others the power of unconditional love and the interconnectedness of all things by your example." As his words sunk in, a wave of clarity washed over me. It struck me that convincing people about heaven or the details of theology wasn't the point. The real message was about living in a way that reflected the profound truth I'd encountered. We are all one, bound together by divine love. Don't forget, Elowen, he continued. Each act of kindness, every moment of true compassion, and every expression of genuine love is a glimpse into the kingdom of heaven. Through your actions, you can bring a bit of that paradise to earth. A spark of determination ignited within me. I knew I'd missed this peaceful, loving place, but I now had a mission, a newfound purpose that gave my earthly life meaning. I'm ready, I declared, a hint of surprise at the strength in my own voice. He beamed at me, a smile that seemed to hold all the love in the universe. I know you are, Elowen, and keep this in mind, even when you return, you won't really be apart from this place or from me. We will be with you, in every heartbeat, every breath, every act of love. As he held out his hand, I felt an energizing wave envelop me. The brilliant colors of the celestial world began to merge into a dazzling swirl of light. Just before I felt the pull back to where I came from, his voice echoed in the vastness. Go with love, Elowen. Go with peace, and always cherish what you've experienced here. In an instant, the sky faded away, and I was falling back into the familiar world I had momentarily left behind. But this time, I was returning with purpose. Some experiences can turn your world upside down, trust me, I know. Coming back to reality after what felt like an eternity in a place filled with warmth and light wasn't exactly gentle. One moment, I was in that heavenly realm, completely at peace, and then, bam, I was jolted back into my physical self, lying on a hospital bed. The first sensation that hit me was pain. It was like a sharp wave running through every part of me. And the noise, oh, the incessant beeping of machines mixed with soft voices murmuring all around. It was overwhelming. With a massive effort, I managed to pry my eyes open. The stark fluorescent lights of the room were brutal compared to the gentleness of that other place. It took me several blinks to start making sense of my surroundings. As the shapes around me sharpened, I caught sight of Elowen, my wife. Her eyes were puffy and red from tears, but there was a glimmer of joy mixed with disbelief on her face. "Aleric," she called out softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Oh God, Aleric, you're back." I wanted to talk, to comfort her, but my throat felt like sandpaper. Thankfully, a nurse moved in quickly, offering me some water with a straw. It was a simple gesture, but let me tell you, every sip was both a struggle and a comfort. As the days passed, I learned more about my situation. Apparently, I had flatlined for nearly 20 minutes. The doctors were getting ready to call it when, poof, my heart miraculously started beating again. They labeled it a medical miracle, but deep down, I knew it was something far greater. Recovering physically was a long road. My body had been through the ringer and needed time to heal, but something profound had shifted inside me. From the very moment I returned, I understood that life would not be the same. My time in that beautiful realm altered how I perceived everything. My understanding of why we're here and my connection to the divine deepened immensely. Elowen was the first to notice the change in me. One day, while she was assisting me in physical therapy, she remarked, "There's something different about you, Aleric. Your eyes, they look deeper, like there's a new calmness." A wave of love washed over me as I smiled back at her. "I've seen things, Elowen," I answered softly, "things that shifted everything." Gradually, I began to open up about my experiences, sharing bits of what I had encountered. At first, it wasn't easy to articulate. How do you explain hues and shades that simply don't exist here? How do you put into words a love so boundless and unconditional that it overshadows everything we think we know about love? While I was sharing my feelings, it hit me. The actual words didn't really matter. What truly counted was the heartfelt energy behind them, the compassion and love I now felt deeply woven into my being. My outlook on life has completely transformed. The things I once deemed essential, like status, a fancy car, or even petty worries, have faded in importance. I began to zero in on what truly counts: love, connection, and compassion. At work, my coworkers could see the change in me. I used to be quite critical of young offenders, but now I approach them with empathy and a broader perspective. I have learned to look past their errors, to recognize the divine spark within each one. Religion has taken on a new meaning for me. Sure, I still go to church, but it's not out of some nagging fear of judgment anymore. Now I see church as a chance to connect with others and share the love I've discovered through my experiences. Sometimes I wrestle with the teachings of the church and how they align with what I felt, but I've trained myself to look for the core message of love and compassion. I began to incorporate meditation into my routine, trying to reconnect with that feeling of unconditional love and unity I experienced. During those quiet moments, I could almost sense the loving presence of Jesus beside me, his love enveloping me like a warm blanket. As time went by, it became clear to me that I was living out the mission Jesus had given me. It wasn't through grand actions or sermons. Rather, it was in the little moments of kindness and love. Whether it was a smile for someone on the street, a supportive word to someone facing struggles, or a warm hug for Eloin, these small gestures were my way of bringing a sliver of heaven to this world. Of course, I'd be lying if I said it was all smooth sailing. There were days when the weight of the world felt almost too much to bear, days when I missed the pure peace of my heavenly experience. But in those tough moments, I'd recall Jesus' words, "You will never truly be separated from this place or me." And so, I keep moving forward. I may have been transformed by my near-death experience, yet I remain very much human. I carry the light of heaven with me, spreading it through love and compassion, living each day with the realization that we are all interconnected. You know, sometimes it hits you. There's so much more happening around us than we might ever truly grasp. When I share my tale, I know it might sound unbelievable to some, while others could raise an eyebrow. But to me, it's the most profound truth I've encountered. Through everything I've experienced, the one big takeaway stands out. Love, pure, unconditional, universal love, is the greatest force there is. It's the thread that binds us together, the energy that carries us, and ultimately, the path that leads us home. So here I am, wrapping up my story. I'm not claiming to have all the solutions, but I have caught a glimpse of something that transcends what we often think we know. My hope is that by narrating this experience, I can spark a bit of inspiration in you to embrace love, compassion, and a deeper understanding of our shared humanity. Because, in the grand scheme of things, our time on this planet is really about learning to love, truly and unconditionally, just as the divine loves us. If this heartfelt journey resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. A thumbs up, a comment, subscribing to our channel, it all helps spread this message further. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our new content. Until we meet again.